UCLA could get a former NBA player back to rejoin the Bruins after he left for the NBA a few years ago, because former UCLA guard Amari Bailey, now 21, is pushing to become the first basketball player to return to the NCAA after playing the NBA in an NBA game. He seeks one more year of a college season via waiver and lawsuit through the NCAA. So Amari Bailey does not want to come back this season, according to a report by Dan Murphy of ESPN. He apparently wants to come back next season and play one more year of college ball. He played one season at UCLA as a freshman, had a good season, did a good job, and he entered into the NBA draft as an 18-year-old, feeling like he left a lot to prove after some mistakes. The rumor out there kind of about the whole thing was that his mother was the one that was really pushing for him to go to the NBA and really wanted him to kind of make that decision and do that. But at the end of the day, he's not coming out and saying that like his family made him make a mistake. His family did anything to him. That's just kind of the rumor from the recruiting stories that, you can kind of look up and remember back from the day. But he would come back, and his plan would essentially be to be a senior if he stayed, or if he came back and just only play for one more year. So he's not looking to come back and like regain eligibility as a sophomore or anything like that. He's trying to come back for essentially his 5th year of eligibility in his window of 2026, 2027. His pro career, he was drafted in the 2nd round, 41st overall by the Charlotte Hornets. He signed a 2-way contract, not an NBA contract. He signed a 2-way contract and played 10 games as a rookie with very limited minutes. I mean, he didn't play. Wasn't like he was playing, 15, 20 minutes a game or even that. Like he was playing very limited minutes out there. He spent 2 years in the G League and was just cut this last summer. Overall, the story in ESPN says that he only earned $565,000 in his time in the NBA in the G League. And the argument is that like this is what a lot of guys in college basketball are making this year, right now. Like his entire time in the NBA and G League, there are guys in college basketball that are making the same, if not more, for some of those star players there. So he's starting to explore this seriously in 2025. He's hired an agent, he's hired a lawyer and everything. And his motives are basically, from what he says, he wants to improve his game, change his perception, and try to get back to the NBA. Whether that means he gets drafted again, I don't know how that would exactly all work. I can't imagine I can't imagine he'd get drafted again. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody getting, in the draft twice. Maybe I'm wrong, but that would be a pretty weird situation. It says he's been training twice a day in Southern California, plans to talk to schools as soon as he possibly can and try to get this whole thing worked out so that way he can play next season. But by NCAA rule, I mean, they ban players who sign pro contracts unless the pay covers only, quote, actual and necessary expenses, end quote. So that's how they get around like the whole European pros thing. I think a lot of people out there are kind of like, well, why is this whole thing happening? If European players can come back and be pros and everything else, then, why can't Amari Bailey? And I think that is the kind of indicator there, is that the Europeans oftentimes are not made the same way as the pros are, with where they're making lucrative deals and all this stuff. They can reference it as like they're only making what is actual and necessary expenses, food, rent, stuff like that. In Bailey's case, he signed the same contract as the other guys who have come back, Bediako and Nanji. Now, Bediako, he was a G League player, was on a 2-way contract, and he won a court injunction to play despite the NCAA's denial. And that was, of course, through the Alabama booster and everything else. And so that whole story that's going on there. But he never actually played any time in the NBA. He played in the G League, but he never actually played any NBA games. Nanji, he was a 2023 draft pick, but he didn't play in the NBA. He played in Europe, never had an NBA contract. So that's why he was actually granted eligibility. I think he's at Baylor right now. It's where he's at, because that's where he went. The NCAA stance is that they won't grant eligibility for NCAA contract signers appealing Bediako's ruling. And I think that's the whole situation here, is that like he can say, well, Bediako's back, but the NCAA doesn't want Bediako back. He's kind of making it through with some of the rulings and stuff like that in Alabama court and things being a little bit more favorable to him. So This one right here has a lot of broad implications for college basketball, in my opinion. It tests the NCAA's eroding rules and waivers, the lawsuits. It tests the idea of NIL payments and being professional athletes and everything else, because NIL is not supposed to be pay for play, but we all know it is. And at the end of the day, that probably won't work in court. These judges and stuff are they're not stupid. You can come in and say, well, it's not pay for play, but really it is. Everybody knows it is. Like, this is how it works out. So this whole situation, look, I'm all for player empowerment, but there needs to be some common sense and what should be no-brainer rules, in my opinion. All right, this is my take on it all. I kind of gave you the facts and tried to stick to all the facts there before. And I understand people saying, like, it wasn't an NBA contract, it was a two-way contract and everything else. But the guy literally played in the NBA. He literally played in games in the NBA. Sure, he's not an NBA star. It's not like LeBron James is coming back to college basketball or anything like that, right? But he literally played in the NBA. And so if you are on an NBA team playing in the games, that should completely rule you out, right? Also, nobody I guess maybe in California it's different. I don't know what it's like living out in California, but I can't imagine you're only living on food and rent with $565,000. Like, feels like there's a little bit extra going on there than just that whole situation. So to me, this looks like nothing more than a guy who couldn't cut it in the NBA, a guy who couldn't cut it in the G League, who says, hey, well, maybe I'll go back to college basketball. Looks like Bediako is doing that. And who knows? Maybe he talked to Bediako, and Bediako is like, yeah, man, I'm making some pretty good coin going back to college basketball because Alabama wants me, and I can be one of the best players on their team right away, And to me, it also kind of signals that Amari Bailey's trying to get back for an entire season to come back and do that and put himself out there on the market too, because that's the whole thing of this is, like, would he come back and would he play for UCLA? It doesn't sound like he has any intentions of going back to UCLA. Not that he wouldn't go back, but it doesn't sound like that's like his goal and where he would go. Of course, Mick Cronin is still there. He was his coach back in 2023. Obviously the fans would love it. If you're a fan, you would want Amari Bailey coming back, older, stronger, faster, all this stuff. Like, yes, he didn't cut it in the NBA. It doesn't mean he can't be a great college player for you. But, like, if it's me, like, this doesn't feel like something Mick Cronin would do. This doesn't feel like something that Mick Cronin would go for, maybe some UCLA fans out there can tell me if I'm wrong, but Cronin is so much like a Tom Izzo. He is so much like work with the young player and develop them and get them through everything else. Like, just doesn't feel like this is something that Mick Cronin would go for. But at the same time, coaches want to win, and Mick Cronin, he's not winning as much as he used to at UCLA right now, much to many UCLA fans' chagrin right now. He's not doing bad. It's not like he's like 10-10 this season or anything like that, but it could be better. And I do wonder how that would impact things with him not coming back directly this season, but him coming back later on, right? Because by the time he's gonna actually start meeting with teams and being recruited and stuff like that, we're going to have the entire transfer portal mess going on. And I can guarantee you this would not be the biggest story out there with the entire transfer portal mess going on, because everybody's going to be focused on their team. Who do we have coming in for visits? Who do we have coming in out there? I mean, the transfer portal time, like, it's the whole reason, if you're a content creator in college basketball, it's the whole reason that you want to be a college basketball content creator, because you can make, a year's worth in college football in 4 weeks of the transfer portal in college basketball, because it is so insane and how much people are looking for information and how much people want to know about the new guys in their team and just how much teams are flipping their entire roster. Like, yeah, it happens somewhat in college football, but in college basketball, you're literally getting entire rosters flipped that season. And so with all of that going on, I actually feel like if Amari Bailey is able to figure this out and able to get back to college, it would actually work out for him pretty well. Now, obviously, there are going to be people that know about it, the diehards and stuff like that, but I don't think this would be front page news if it happened in the transfer portal mess, because there's just so much more that's going on. I'm curious what you guys think about all this. Dr. Fakin says, just limit college hoops to 4 years and let the floodgates open. College basketball will be a huge talent boost as the results would be awesome. And that's the thing, too, is there's a lot of people out there that are like, well, we just want to see the best the best basketball. And if you do open it up, then yeah, you're going to see the best basketball out there. But then at what point does it just come into basically being the G League instead of college basketball, right? In that whole situation. So, I mean, it's all so crazy. This entire situation is so crazy. This is the new Alabama recruiting model. Yeah. Alabama is changing. Alabama's changing college basketball like Kirk and Eddie changed college football. So, Joe says LeBron has 4 years of eligibility, I think. Hey, listen, if LeBron can come back to Ohio State, Jake Diebler might give him his entire salary to do that. Oh, man. All right. Says better players are better to watch. I get it. Yeah, I get it. I get it for sure. And if that's your goal, is you just want to see the best brand of basketball out there. Yeah, sure. Like, I get that. For me as a college basketball fan, I don't think that's what I want as much. Like, yes, I do want to see a really good brand of college basketball, but I also do have like the college pride aspect of it, and the idea of like guys do kind of, develop and get older and work through stuff, but that's going away in college basketball too. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people left college basketball is because of the one and done and everything else. So I get where you're coming from, Dr. Faking there. And honestly, like, if that's your stance, I don't blame you at all, because I get it. It's not personally what I would want, but I get it if that's you. So, all right. Let's move on to the last thing here. This Ohio State story is really interesting. So I do want to highlight this story because it is really interesting. And I do think it has a lot of implications on the Big Ten and everything else that's going on out there.